Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make this cute Valentine's Day card and we're going to learn some new tips and tricks along the way. This video is brought to you by Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com, and I'm beginning by inking up the tree stamp from my Budding Spring stamp set that I designed last year for them with a kind of a grayish brown ink. The color of the ink is Espresso Truffle, and I like it because it's not going to be too, the tone of it is very neutral, so it's not going to be too orangey like some browns are. And then I'm taking 4 different shades of pink and red, and I am stamping this cute little heart over and over again in the branches. I'm going light to dark so that I don't mix up the colors in my ink pads, so that's a tip whenever you're doing any multi-ink stamping here. I really like the way this looks. It just is so cheerful, and by layering it up like this, I can put some of the darker hearts in front of the branches and trunks so they stand out a little bit more. Just try to balance your design as you go, so you don't want to have too many, red ones together, too many light pink ones together, and you can always go back in with another color if you need to. Then I made sure to put some hearts on the ground, kind of like falling leaves, because I thought that was kind of a cute, whimsical element. Now we're going to do a technique that I haven't done in a while, and I don't know why, because it's so fun. We're going to stamp on ribbon, and you can pretty much do this on any kind of like a light colored ribbon you want, but I really like to use twill tape because I notice my ink doesn't really feather on it very much, and it doesn't wrinkle and twist on you, so it's really easy to stamp on, and it stays put really well. It's a nice flat woven ribbon, so it also tends not to fray very easily. So I started off by inking up this scripty love word with some pigment ink, and I'm using VersaFine Clear, but any pigment ink in the color you want is going to work. Dye-based ink will be a little bit more prone to feathering and also will have a harder time showing up on your fabric. So the pigment ink, with it being more opaque and more likely to sit on top of the ribbon rather than seep in, will give you a much crisper, nicer, brighter design. And then I use that same exact ink pad and that same heart that I was using earlier just to accent my ribbon. Now you could do more with this, you could add some other colors, but I like to keep it kind of simple, and I think it gives you a nice classic look. Now to make sure that this is going to stay color fast or it's not going to smudge, you want to heat set it. Now, if you were doing this on, like, some people will stamp on like clothing, like t-shirts or baby onesies, then they'd probably iron it to heat set it, but the heat tool will work just fine for a project like this. Now I wanted the tree trunk to stand out from the background a little bit, but I didn't want it to be super dark, so what I'm doing is going in with kind of a mid-tone brown, and I'm adding in some highlights. I'm just making sure I go around the hearts. I don't want to color over them, and then I'm blending it with a lighter shade of brown. So basically I just color over everything with this shade, not over the hearts, but everything else, all the branches, and then it just blends in with a color, because I'm using a pretty decent cardstock. This is the Nina Classic Crest, which I like to use for alcohol markers, and it stamps really well too because it's really smooth. And I decided that because I found some really pretty vintage fabric that I wanted to use, and I've got the different shades of red and pink there, but there was this kind of pretty like teal color in there, and I wanted to incorporate that onto this panel, so I am using some like tealish aqua colored ink and a sponge to blend it on there. Now the shape that I die cut this into, this is from a die set called Book Plates, but you could obviously just use a trimmer and trim it to a square and use some decorative edge scissors to scallop the top if you want to, or you can just have it a square or a circle or a heart, whatever you want. It's your card, do whatever you like. Now for working with fabric, there's so many different ways you can do this, but I wanted to have kind of a raw frayed edge, but I didn't want it quite as frayed as my fabric was there from my stash. So what I'm going to do is I just cut off a scrap of it, and then I tore it. And by starting a tear with your scissors, just doing a little snip, it makes it a lot easier to tear. Now this is a woven fabric, so it wants to tear really easily down the path of where you started your snip. If you're trying to use something like a knit, it's not going to tear very well, and you'd have to cut it. So I highly recommend using a woven fabric for this, such as a quilter's cotton or a linen. Or you could even, like if you had some old clothing that you were going to be getting rid of, you could always get fabric out of that too. So be creative. So I decided that I wanted to also incorporate a little bit more of that aqua paper, and I just got a color. It wasn't quite right for my scrap bin, so I just grabbed my ink and I added ink to it so it would match. That's what's so great about your ink and not using a bazillion different colors. Stick to a couple colors and then ink up your elements so stuff matches. It gives you such a chic look, and it's actually makes your card making go a lot quicker because you're not like overwhelmed with choices. Now I wanted to get kind of like a little bit of a ruffle here, but I don't have too much excess fabric, so I have to be really conservative with it. So what I'm doing is putting down a little hot glue and then pinching the fabric. So you want to be really careful with this. Since I'm working in my basement, which is quite cool, the glue isn't super duper hot, so I would definitely use a low temperature glue gun or a glue gun on its lowest setting. I would not use it like a hot glue gun because the fabric's not that thick. Plus, if your glue isn't that hot, then it's not going to seep through the fabric as well. But that just gives you a nice little gather. I guess it's more of a gather than a ruffle, and it just looks really pretty. I folded over the top piece to the back, but I really like the raw fraying that I had on the bottom of that, and I thought it was quite an appealing texture to have. So now I'm figuring out where I want to put my ribbon. I stamped the love 3 times across because I wanted to make sure that I would get at least one of those would end up being seen. If I wanted to tuck it behind something, I knew that I could wiggle it around and adjust it so that that full word would be seen somewhere. And I've actually purchased ribbon like that before, and it's so nice if you just get some plain ribbon and you can do it however you want. And if you don't have ribbon, cut a piece of paper, do it on paper. You could even stamp it, right? And then run it through a paper crimper or an embosser if you want to get a little texture on it. So if you don't have a plain white ribbon that you can stamp, find something else that works. It's not the end of the world. You can even do this on a scrap of fabric too if you have some fabric scraps lying around. It might be tricky to do this on felt, because especially in acrylic felt, but most of your fabric or ribbon is going to work really well for this technique. I have a 5x7 craft card base for this, and I think that color goes really nice with the other colors that I have going on. And back in the day, I was like so crazy about shaped brads. Oh my gosh, I just loved them for scrapbooking so much, and I still have some left over. So I thought this kind of this whimsical heart would be really nice. So I'm just going to poke a little hole here because I've got a couple thicknesses of cardstock weight paper and I don't want to bend my paper. So that's a nice tip. Use a thumbtack or something to poke a hole before you try to stick a brad through your paper so you don't end up bending it. And I just put that up in the corner for a little bit of embellishment. And I like to do this on my panel rather than through my whole card so you don't see the brad legs peeking out into the middle of the card. And that pretty much does it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today, and check out our sponsor pegstamps.com. That's the home of Rubber Stamp Tapestry. They have so many fun stamps, inks, and other products to enhance your card making. I want to thank you so much for watching today. Please give me a thumbs up before you go, and until next time, happy crafting!